Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today we're covering probably the most boring Manchester United versus Liverpool game that you are ever going to see. It was 0-0, it was drab, there was no atmosphere. It was a pretty boring old game. However, I still think that as Manchester United fans, I think there's things that we can take from the game, and certain things which were done differently by Erik ten Hag and his players, which, in my opinion, warrant us looking at them. So let's head over to the tactical board, and first of all, focus on the defensive side of the game from Manchester United. Now, we've got United in the white colour here, because that's what they played in. Liverpool in red. Slight switch up to how we normally do things, so I just thought I'd point that out. So, Manchester United defensively had little interest in squeezing high up the pitch and applying pressure high up the pitch. And instantly, I think that's a good thing from Erik ten Hag. We've seen in games this season when we have pressed, we've kind of pressed with some players. Other players have dropped off, it's left big gaps. We didn't really see that in this game. McTominay and Rasmus Højlund weren't applying pressure that high up the pitch. We were very much content sitting off in a 4-4-2 shape, which is the exact defensive approach I think we should use on a more regular basis. This obviously allowed Liverpool to play out from the back. Now, do I think United's 4-4-2 shape was compact or not? I think at times it was. I think at times we got the spacing done quite nicely. For example, our fullbacks were pretty narrow. And the result of that was that someone like Salah can't attack a channel of space. So let's say Szoboszlai gets the ball. What we've seen in the past this season is that we're quite stretched, we're quite wide. So let's say if Trent has the ball here, he can then find Salah in this sort of pocket of space. We didn't see that in this game. And that's because the fullbacks were tucked quite narrow alongside the two centre-backs. And basically, as the ball went wide, it was the wingers' responsibility, Garnacho and Antony, to cover across and try and stop the cross coming into the box. And basically, it felt like the game plan was, we're going to start narrow, we're going to start compact, we're not going to let Liverpool play through the middle of the pitch, we're going to force them wide, and then we're going to deal with the cross as it comes into the box. And to be fair, if that was the United game plan, it did work largely. Liverpool were often forced into wide areas where, United were helped by Liverpool having a really bad day. Trent's crossing wasn't at the level we'd normally expect. Salah's connections and combination play were awful. I'm not really sure what he was doing. Diaz on the other side, really poor game. So I feel like United were helped by Liverpool having a poor day. However, regardless of that, United were improved defensively. At the same time, I still don't think it was a great mid-block from United. For example, I think if we're going to set up in a 4-4-2 and sit off the ball, I still think Højlund and McTominay have to affect the game. So what we would see, let's say we've got Konate and Van Dijk here. Endo's in this position. We're going to push Timikas a little bit further forward. Let's drop Trent a little bit, push Szoboszlai and Gravenberch further forward. Now, as the front two, it's okay if we're not applying pressure to the ball. I think that's the right approach, to not apply pressure to the ball. So that's completely fine. However, I still think that McTominay and Højlund can do a little bit more to affect the ball, even if they're not actually applying pressure to the ball. For example, at least mark Endo in midfield. There were spells in the first half where it's far too easy just to play a ball like that, and Endo would just kind of turn, look up, and then play from there. Now again, fortunately, Endo just is nowhere near the level of a player which should be playing in this sort of game. And he had a really poor game on the ball. His passing was quite poor. But I feel like McTominay and Højlund against better opposition do need to do a better job of just affecting that ball a little bit more as it goes into these areas. Because it just made it a little bit too easy for Liverpool to play through the first part of our block. The other issue that United had was that Liverpool did have the overload now in central areas. Once Højlund and McTominay were beaten, we've now got two central midfielders, particularly with the wingers ready to cover wide. It did leave United with a problem, and it was a little bit too easy to pull Sophie and Amrabat out of position. So what we could see is, let's say Konate's got the ball, and on this occasion McTominay is going to try and go press a little bit. And Trent Alexander-Arnold, is going to drop a little bit deeper, and Garnacho is kind of looking at him as his man. Salah's going to pin Shaw into this sort of position. But then what we can see quite easily is just, let's say, someone like Szoboszlai would come towards the ball, Amrabat's going to follow him, and now we open up this massive bit of space in here. So considering United were in a double pivot, I felt that Sophie and Amrabat was too keen to go wandering and go close down. And that was a problem in the first half. It was a real problem. Liverpool progressed the ball far too easily when he was doing this. Amrabat in general, on his performance, he was absolutely terrible. I still think there's a great player in there. I still think if United were to be a possession-based team, I think he would be great. But in this game, he was horrendously bad. He was absolutely horrific. He won one duel all day, gave away pretty much all of his passes. He was really poor. But it was his reading of the game which disappointed me. He didn't need to get baited by this because it was just opening up spaces for Liverpool. And when Liverpool obviously do have quality, they can have a bad day, but it still only takes one moment and they're going to create something and they're going to hurt you. Fortunately, Liverpool didn't really have that. When they did have it and when they were a bit more creative and a bit more effective moving forward, we had an incredible box defence display. I thought Kobbie Mainoo done a brilliant job on the edge of the box of throwing himself in front of shots, knocking shots wide with his head and things like that. But then we have to give credit to this back four and the goalkeeper. I think they were all absolutely brilliant. If you told me at the start of the season we were going to come into this game with Jonny Evans at centre-back after the 7-0 last year, I think it's fair to say I would have been a little bit concerned, a little bit apprehensive about that. But I thought he was absolutely brilliant. But the big one here, Raphael Varane. His box defence is the best in the Premier League in my opinion. I think he is the best box defender. So when you're sitting deep, as United were, particularly in the second half we closed up a little bit. So Amrabat was no longer pouncing. Scott McTominay is going to come right deep, almost into a flat 5 in midfield. And Højlund's by himself up front, but even he's really deep. When United were in these situations, parking the bus realistically in a low block, Raphael Varane and Jonny Evans' box defence was absolutely incredible. Like I said, Shaw and Dalot done a really good job as well. The United wingers worked hard. So overall, it was a more compact display from United, which I guess is an upside. There were also a couple of upsides in possession as well, so let's take a look at that.
So before we continue into the video, a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, JerseyFifa.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that be the new latest releases or the old classic ones like this, Jersey FIFA has something for everyone, and now you can check it out yourself using the link in the description down below. And also make sure to use code JerseyFIFA for 10% off when you order.
So when Manchester United were playing the ball out from the back, we did see some good play, and that was because United used a very different structure. Now, despite what you may have heard on commentary, depending on where you are watching the game, United's play-out wasn't bad in this game. I've heard a lot of criticism for it. It was people saying there was no idea, there was no style of play. I completely disagree. I actually think the plan here from Erik ten Hag was pretty clear. And there were real spells where it worked. Now we can see we've got Dalot in a bit of an odd position here. He's inverted all the way from right back into this position. And I thought he'd done an excellent job, particularly in the second half. He was receiving on the back foot, turning, playing really well. But the important thing was United were able to drag Liverpool out of their position. So, let's say Onana's got the ball at the back. Darwin Núñez is going to go apply pressure. Salah is going to come inside onto Raphael Varane. We've got Núñez is kind of in this sort of position here, so on the keeper and the centre-back. Luis Diaz is here. Szoboszlai is going to push all the way up on Amrabat. And Trent Alexander-Arnold is going to come into this sort of half and half position here between Garnacho and Luke Shaw. And then we've got Konate and Van Dijk at the back. Sometimes Tsimikas would also join the press as well. Sometimes he would sit off. But basically, we can see Liverpool have gone man for man all over the pitch. So what's the plan here for Manchester United? We've got no technical players. How do we get out from the back? Well, one plan was to eventually work the ball to Jonny Evans. As Diaz would come across, we would then go into Dalot. He could receive on the turn and play from there. That was one plan. The other plan was that once we'd done that a few times, Diaz started picking up Dalot. So Evans would go down the line. I'll be honest, when we done this, we then looked a little bit, lacking in ideas. It often resulted in a long ball, which didn't really go anywhere. So that was a little bit concerning. However, when it came down the other side, it was actually much better. And the reason for this is because Liverpool have a problem with their press, which Manchester United have. And that is that Trent Alexander-Arnold is hesitant on whether to connect the press and go up on Luke Shaw or cover his centre-back and help out with Garnacho. Which means, if Onana just floats this ball out to Luke Shaw, even if Trent is close, Shaw is much better in the air than Trent is. So this was a way for United to get out from the back. And if we quickly go over to Once Video Analyzer Pro, we can see this. So we've got a situation here. We can see that Liverpool have committed men high. We've got Diaz up here. We've got Darwin Núñez. We've got Szoboszlai. We've got Salah in a real inside position on Raphael Varane. All it takes is one clipped ball over the top to Luke Shaw. We can see Trent is joining the press, but isn't quite there on time. Luke Shaw's able to get the ball down, and United play out from the back there. So that was one way United were able to get out from the back. The other thing, though, which worked here, was that United dragged Liverpool out. So let's say we now take this goal kick short to Raphael Varane. Liverpool come across. We go back to Onana, onto his right foot, something like this. What we can see now is that if United do go for the long ball approach here, they're actually going to be 4 versus 4 up against the Liverpool defence. And for me, this was the real plan. Play out from the back occasionally, work the ball from the back and build possession through the pitch. That was one of the plans. But the other plan was to drag Liverpool miles out of position. The positioning of Dalot brings Diaz narrow. This means that Kobbie Mainoo has space to drop into on the right, which drags Gravenberch out of midfield. So what we've done is we've completely opened up Liverpool's midfield. We've left them with Tsimikas, Van Dijk, Konate and Endo, which means when we do go long, yes, it's a 50-50 game at this point, it's not high percentage football, but you do have the chance of getting on a second ball, and now we are 4 versus 4. And if you go back and watch the game, United had countless situations where better decisions in the final third, we could have seen something here. I thought Anthony and Garnacho, unfortunately, both had their worst game in recent weeks. I felt they really struggled with the physicality of the game. Anytime either of them kind of get lent on a little bit, they just go down to the floor and give the ball away. So that was a little bit of a problem for United. The other problem was Scott McTominay had a bad game. He's the man kind of, the captain leading the counter-attack. In possession, he just wasn't very good, which did leave Rasmus Højlund a little bit isolated. However, despite that, again, if we head over to Want Video Analyzer Pro, check the link in the description. I highly recommend it. It's a great video analysis software. It allows us to see things like this. So we can see Manchester United are trying to play the ball out from the back. The ball goes short, and Liverpool see this as the opportunity to go and press. Now, they're in a different structure by this time, Liverpool, but you can still see Diaz inside on Diogo Dalot here. Salah's in a slightly different position. But the ball comes out wide to Johnny Evans. And what we'll see as this happens is that Liverpool have squeezed over and pressed men high up the pitch. Tsimikas has come out here on Kobbie Mainoo. We've pulled the Liverpool players miles out of position, which now means one long ball up to the front men, and as the long ball goes up, we are 4 versus 4 on the last line. Liverpool have 4 defenders, Manchester United have 4 attackers, and when you've got a Scott McTominay, a Rasmus Højlund, you do have physical presences who can win their duels in the middle of the park. On this occasion, United get the ball down. Excuse the quality of the actual footage here. Rasmus Højlund plays the ball into Scott McTominay here. Scott McTominay gets the ball, plays it wide to Anthony. Anthony picks the ball up, goes back inside to Scott McTominay, with Højlund making the run off the ball, and McTominay plays it to Rasmus Højlund, and this is by far, slight glitch there, this is by far the biggest chance that either side had in the game, in my opinion. It was the best bit of football which either side constructed, and it came from a change of tactical approach from Erik ten Hag. That idea of really, really drawing Liverpool onto them, and then going long and bypassing it, and then attacking that backline. I thought it was a good strategy, which worked quite well. Apart from that, I don't think there is much else to report on in this game. We all watched the game. It was pretty boring. I thought Kobbie Mainoo, to be fair, deserves credit. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. I think, again, I would say he was the best midfielder on the pitch, which is a credit when you look at the money on some of those players in midfield, particularly for Liverpool. I thought he played really well. But there's not really much more to talk about there. It's just 2 slightly different structures we saw. From United, the out of possession shape was a little bit different, a little bit more compact. Still not perfect, needs improvement, but it's the right idea. And then in possession, again, long term, it's perhaps not sustainable, but for this game from Erik ten Hag, it did actually work quite well. I think United will take the 0-0 draw. It perhaps says where we are as a club, that we're so happy with a 0-0 draw, but I think we all thought that we were going to be beat, so we take it. In the future, we have to build on this and see a more possession-based game. We can't have that little of the ball again. The likes of Amrabat have to be far better on the ball. He was absolutely terrible. United have to improve in that way. But purely for this game, where United were, nowhere near predicted to win this. Liverpool were strong favourites coming into the game. I think you take the point and you move on to the next one. So that's what we're going to do. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.